This is a meeting of Lorain County Board of Commissioners, Tuesday, October 1st, 2024. Let us start the meeting with a pledge to the flag.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Madam Clerk.
Commissioner Riddell,
Here.
Commissioner Moore. I thought I just heard him.
Yes, he is. There he is.
Commissioner Moore,
Say here.
Stay here.
Here.
Commissioner Hahn.
Here.
We have a quorum.
Sorry, sometimes the bathroom breaks take long.
What I said, you probably had to stop at the bathroom.
Sorry.
That's okay. I just did roll call, so we're good. So, today is the final hearing on the Kelner Ditch, Village of LaGrange, Townships of LaGrange and Carlisle. A petition was filed on April 7, 23 by the Village of LaGrange from the Stormwater District to clean and restruct the drainage system and provide permanent easement for county maintenance, with all costs being borne to the Stormwater Maintenance District and Village of LaGrange. First hearing was held on July 18th to 23. Resolution 2444 adopted August 2nd ordered the hearing today. 1,548 owners were notified by certified mail on September 10th. Notice of this hearing was published on September 17th and 24th in the Chronicle. Several people had called to discuss the letter. 24 owners signed the intent letter. 16 owners refused the letter, but their name and address are correct in accordance with the auditor's site. 12 owners were unclaimed, but address and name were correct per their auditor's site. 6 owners were undeliverable, but the address and name were correct per the auditor's site. 6 owners filed notice of exception or claims, that being LaGrange Electrical Assemblies Company, Lonnie Tanner, trustee, and Patricia Tanner, trustee, Daniel and Stacy Wilson, Teresa Gribble, Mary Bowen, and David Della Liler. And there are 2, one for each side. There are sign-in forms that everybody needs to sign in. Please, thank you. Commissioner.
Okay. Should we post that on the screen, the part about those that discussed that called to discuss the letter, those that signed the letter? I would assume that the 24 owners that signed the intent letter
These pages.
are probably going to be speakers.
No, not necessarily.
Okay. Well, then we'll commence with the normal process, and we'll try and figure out the public speaking part when we get to it. Greg, would you like to swear in any people wishing to give testimony today, and would you please stand and raise your hand?
Anyone wishing to give testimony for or against the ditch petition, please stand and raise your right hand and answer affirmatively. Do you swear? Oh, I'm sorry, I don't want to jump the gun. I'll wait. Are we all set? Right hand raised. Do you all swear or affirm that the testimony you are about to give is the whole truth and nothing but the truth? Thank you. You may be seated.
Okay. Mr. Zwick, would you like to get us started?
Yes, sir. Very brief remarks. Evening, Commissioners. Of course, I am Peter Zwick, and I will represent the Office of the County Engineer here at this final hearing in the process. Of course, the first hearing was held more than 1 year ago. And I'll state for the record here that the county engineer still expects that the benefits will outweigh the costs of this project. Today, we have the Stormwater District's consultant, K.E. McCartney Engineering. Engineer Alt will present his final engineering report, including cost estimates. And the county engineer's office participated in the development of that report, of course, and we do concur with its findings and recommendations. Mr. Chairman, do you have any questions for me at this time?
No, sir.
Thank you.
Don?
Oh, no.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Hi, my name is Alex Alt, and I am with K. McCartney and Associates. We're working with Peter, who represents the Office of the County Engineer. This is the final public hearing in the ditch petition process for Kelner Ditch. So Kelner Ditch has a long list of problems. We had over 300 points collected during the initial investigation. That's too many to go over right now, so here's just a few worth mentioning. We've got a log jam at the top, which is obstructing high and low flows. The bottom picture is a footbridge that's blocking high flows. The top picture here is a log jam that is obstructing and causing sediment to build up. And the bottom picture is just another severe log jam, which is obstructing both low and high flows. The rest of the recorded obstructions are shown in the final report. This report was submitted in July of 25th of 2024. It contains a lot of the information you'll see in this presentation. We estimate the cost of this improvement for Kelner Ditch to be $2,580,000. The final report that I mentioned contains a detailed breakdown of this estimate. We estimate $0 in damages, and that the benefits will exceed the cost, and that the proposed improvement will answer the prayer of the petition. The cost will be assessed or distributed over the benefiting lands, but furthermore, we recommend that the county pay for any assessments and suspend the maintenance fee as it has done so in the past. This is the map of the benefit area. So this light blue area represents the drainage area of the proposed drainage course. Kelner Ditch flows to the north, which is up in this map, to its confluence with King Cobalt Ditch, and then flows to the northwest. The proposed ditch improvement is shown in the darker blue. And to kind of acclimate you more, the village of LaGrange is centrally located in this shaded area. And State Route 301 runs north and south through the middle, and 303 runs east and west through the middle also. So the proposed improvement consists of cleaning 5.2 miles of Kelner Ditch. It'll also restore local drainage for 3,402 acres of farmland, rural, and suburban residences. It involves clearing trees along the access route, removing log jams and sediment accumulation, and also providing a 50-foot wide permanent easement for future county maintenance. And ultimately, this will reduce flooding and flood severity. Estimate damages. So no land will be taken, only an easement. No property will suffer any change of use. No structures will be physically impacted in any way. No building area will change. No usable land will be reduced. No property setbacks will change. No environmental damage will occur. No trees or brush will be damaged or removed except those absolutely necessary, which are only those that would interfere with the drainage course and the access thereto. And no ground will be left in a disturbed condition after construction. Therefore, since there are no actual damages, we estimate the damages of $0 to be sustained by all property owners as a result of the construction and subsequent maintenance of this improvement. Today, the county commissioners will decide whether to proceed, which would include approving final assessments. And then a time and date would be set for receiving bids. And the next steps would be finalizing the project and preparing it for bidding. I just wanted to thank everyone for taking the time to be here today and here to answer any questions if you have them.
Any questions from the board? No? Very clear. Don?
Thank you, Commissioners. This is a long day coming, and I appreciate the time and everyone that has chosen to come out today. As you could see from some of those photos, there are some definite concerns. Those photos are representative, and with over 300 spots, they are both within the township areas and the village areas. So this entire ditch is in need of some restoration. The project design was done with a budget in mind. So we are primarily looking at just basically hitting those spots that need to be treated and try and minimize our impact within the ditch itself. And so that's why you hear talk about 300 plus spots. We are not like some of our other ditches where we're going to completely dip out and reshape the banks of a ditch. This is going in and removing those log jams, removing those obstructions, removing those sandbars to restore the flow of the water. With the cost estimate of $2,580,000, the county has the resources available to be able to do this, so that I would request, as we've done in the past, that the board not set a construction assessment, that the big number that everyone got in the letter, essentially they could consider that number to be zero. Ideally, if you decide to go forward with this project at the end of the hearing. And similarly, because this is a project where really it's going to be, when it comes to maintenance, more of a logjam removal and on occasion maybe a sediment removal, a sandbar removal, rather than most ditches where we would be looking at on a maintenance program where once every 20 years we have to basically reshape the ditch again. I believe our maintenance costs will be much lower on this, and so that we should be able to continue to suspend collection of the maintenance assessments, so that at the end of the day the residents would not be paying either of these assessments for at least as long as this board can speak and into the foreseeable future on the maintenance, but with a zero on the construction. The source of the money would be from ARPA funds. Stormwater district is necessary. And then I would ask the board to consider, if they would be so kind, to keep a tradition that's relatively recent with the use of ARPA funds, that we would add a minimum match LaGrange Village for any dollars that they put in. Their breakdown of this is $610,000. And so if they were to put in $305,000, we would put in $305,000. And then I believe LaGrange Village is here as well. And if the project comes in under estimate, I think we can do better than 50-50. We could keep our commitment and take a little bit of pressure off of the village. I will say this, as part of this overall project, the ditch has been something that I've been working on for a long time, the district and the county has, but we've also been working with the village in trying to address issues that are unique to the village with flooding. And they have invested heavily in time, resources, and dollars into flood control measures, including acquiring a large piece of property and putting a basin in, and they've done multiple phases. And the county has assisted them to a degree, putting in some ARPA funds to match some ARPA funds they put into the detention basin. But they have invested a lot of time and effort. Their residents as well pay a stormwater fee. Their residents actually pay a little bit more than the county does right now, the township residents. And then we've had a very good working relationship with the mayor and their administrator. And I don't see that changing. They've always been open to a phone call. They didn't throw me out of the office when I showed them a number that was above 500,000. And they continued to talk to me when I found out that their basin that they were doing basically was not going to help our township, so we wouldn't be able to assist them using our stormwater fee money because there was going to be no benefit to our residents who were paying it, but it was very important to the village. They were moving the stormwater out of people's basements and into the basin. The flow in the ditch wasn't changing at all. So for the township, we wouldn't recognize it, but they continued to take my call even after I said we cannot help. So those are some things that I'd like you to consider. Also the village and the township over the years have had a good working relationship. And this project also does go into Carlisle Township. Let's see here. So we have sufficient resources, the spot removal sediment buildup. And then, there was a complaint about, in our letter that the link to the website wasn't working. I was able to get it to work, and then the other issue was that it was a preliminary plan and not the final plan that was up. I just checked the website. The final plan is up. I will say, though, the date on it was wrong, of February 22nd, 2024, where the one that you saw here was that the engineer presented was July 25th, 2024. But that is the only change in the report. As we were going through and changing the construction estimate, the scope of work, and those type of things have not changed from that original report that was looked at. And then lastly, we have had many conversations with many property owners up and down. If you may recall from the first hearing, we've incorporated within the plan some ways to help reduce the propensity of people to trespass onto other people's lands by use of gates. In looking at different design, where we locate the gate. One gentleman had some interesting, he actually has access to the ditch where he comes in from a different side. So if you're looking down, it looks like a solid set of trees, but it turns in to be able to get to it. We have had a long discussion with Mr. Pickworth and are working with him so that we can relocate an entrance to be able to manage or to get to the ditch along Meadow Creek and look at going rather than off of Parsons Road, which is at the bottom of two hills. And so you're at the bottom, and to be able to have our staff in the future or contractors working and trying to come off of Parsons Road and into the easement, it's a little tricky because you're gonna have people coming up and over the hill that aren't going to see you until they've crested that hill. And people going the speed limit's 55 miles an hour. So if you're speeding, you're really moving. So we're looking at coming in rather than off of Parsons Road and through the neighborhood, which would be through a gentleman's side yard, of working with Mr. Pickworth to come in along the side of his farm field at the end of Meadow Creek. And so these are the type of things that we have been working on and massaging in the plan. If the board does decide to go forward, after 30 days, we would be ready to go out for bid on this project. I will say, going out to bid, that would put us around November 1st, thereabouts. And then we could award a contract before the end of the year, hopefully, or beginning of January. But realistically, I don't think construction on this could probably begin until October of next year. We have issues with bats, and we have a lot of clearing. We might be able to get some clearing done. And then the month of June, we have to be careful of doing in-water work, so that we've got a couple of environmental constraints. But if we can move this forward, we should be able to get it under contract. And that would tie up up to 2.58 million in ARPA funds under contract. And with that, I am open for any questions, board.
Yeah, in the 2.5 million, like, does that include what the village is requesting?
That is an all-in number, $1,970,000 for the township portion of the improvement, $610,000 for the village. I would imagine we would enter into the contract using one source of funds, and then have the village reimburse us over time.
Well,
Because
it's over, well, with the ARPA funds that we both have, and I've talked to them in the past, I want to make sure, because we're now
Yeah.
into 26, where if we don't spend it, it gets sent back. So I
Yeah.
don't want to send the feds back any money.
yeah,
so.
we should. We'll definitely have it spent. This would put us close to.
Close to 26.
Well, it would also, though, put us close to the $6.5 million being expended with what we have under contract and what we've spent. We'll have another $1 million to go, and I've got a couple more
So just make
projects.
sure
I hope to
the
bring you.
2.58 that you're talking about, that includes what the village wants to participate in, right?
Yes, the village amount, $610,000, we'd be looking at. Of that, $305,000 ARPA from the county, and then they'd be looking at $305,000. And we could, again, potentially adjust it if the project comes in under. We would keep ours at the 305, reduce their local match. And to be fair with the village, I do not know how much money they have left in ARPA. I do know they're concerned about completely depleting their stormwater funds. So I would imagine their 305,000 would be dipping pretty heavy into their stormwater account.
Okay, and again, you know, with the two timelines we have to do is we have to have this under commitment, which considers contract by the end of 2024.
Correct.
And it needs to be spent by the end
Of 2026.
of 26, which if you start in October, that leaves you 15 months.
And that would be more than doable.
Okay, but it's the same, you know, the bats appear every year, not just in 2025.
Correct, but our problem is that is it April? I think April, you're unable to start clearing trees unless you do intensive bat surveys. But then in October, magically they disappear, and then you can start clearing again. And then with the April issue, then you hit July with fish spawning season, where you don't want to do in-water work. So,
Well, I'm just saying though, that in
But-
25 and 26, you're going to have 2 bat periods and 2 fishing periods, and we
Right.
still think we can get this done.
yes,
Okay.
Don,
yes.
my question was kind of echoing off my colleagues here. So I looked back at the paperwork from July of '23. So the number has not changed, although we do have inflation. And I think what you're telling us is the most important thing here is we get this out to bid so we know what the number is, so we know to stay in budget and be able to utilize those ARPA funds before they expire, correct?
Correct.
Okay. I was glad to see that you didn't give us a price increase versus where you were a year ago.
Well, we have done a lot of maneuvering on this project as well. So again, this project is different from most of our ditch projects. We are not dipping and reshaping the entire ditch. One, it's cost prohibitive. Two, it's time prohibitive. And three, I think we would actually then be, in some areas, probably triggering permits that would further inflate the costs and the time, whereas with the approach we've taken, we're able to better control costs and get the biggest bang for the buck. It's, again, we identified over 300 obstructions in that 5 miles, or 5.2 miles. That comes out to one almost every 90 feet. So that's a lot when you think about it. But they tend to be clustered.
It's still just a bid estimate, so we won't know the
Right.
number until, yeah.
Mr. President?
Yes.
And also, too, going through the paperwork again, I see this is started back in 2015, and now we have this opportunity with the ARPA dollars. So I'm hoping.
Where does this rank with your longest project? Is this up there with?
It is probably third longest.
Okay.
I've got one that I'm hoping to have a final design and easements, before the end of the year. But it was the first grant awarded in the community grant program, and it ended up having to be turned back in because we couldn't get an easement. And we've continued to work the problem, and now I think we've got a solution.
Very good.
Thank you.
Anything else for Don? Nope. Thank you, Don.
Thank you.
Is there someone from the village of LaGrange that would like to speak on behalf of the village?
Come on up.
You gotta,
Come on up. Get your face on the YouTube. Come on.
No, he's fine.
Now you
Come on,
did it.
Mayor. That way everybody can see you.
Yes, hi, my name's Gary Concanon. I'm the mayor of the village of LaGrange. Now everybody can see me. I just wanted to point out the letter. I don't know who wrote the letter. I don't know how it was transcribed, but it was pretty confusing. And even up to last Sunday, I was still getting phone calls about the letter. How come I have to pay $500? They didn't read it, and a lot of citizens did not read it. I hope no one's here thinks that they have to pay because you don't, the way it's read. If you read it carefully, you don't have to pay. And the last person I talked to said, the county's going to be getting checks from some people. So maybe we can throw that into the kitty. But I'd like to thank Mr. Romancic. He's been a great help. Every time I've talked to him, he's explained everything I've needed, and Mary Kay as well. So thank you very much. If we appreciate any help you can give the village. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor.
If I recollect, the village was working on this problem while the rest of the county worked on their piece of it. So I kudos for going forward. The townships represented, we have two townships. We have Carlisle and LaGrange Township. Would there be representatives from either one of the townships that would like to speak? Congratulations. Public servants that have said it all.
I see them.
This is good. Okay. Now, for resident commentary, some of you raised your hands and wanted to speak tonight, and so it looks like we have about a dozen. So at that point, it looks like we should be able to clear the deck tonight, and everybody who has raised their hand to speak will get an opportunity to speak. So who'd like to go? How do we want to go first? Normally, we fill out slips at the back, but that's not been a part of the process for ditch hearings. So do you want to just start on this side of the room, on the left side of the room, and we'll go from row to row? Who's the first one that would like to speak? You be first. Thank you.
Thank you.
no, you have to come to,
on to.
You have to be on camera and the microphone. Sorry. Don't be bashful.
and name and address when you come up.
Frank Lipinski, 15171 Whitehead Road. You answered one question already. You intend to start it sometime maybe in October of next year. Okay. And Don, or I think Don, made mention of, no, it was you made no mention. No change in property use. That's correct? They are not going to put a complete road from end to end?
There will be no installation of a road. When we leave, what you'll have is a flat, grassy area. So there,
So then there is a change. Right? And most of this isn't gonna affect a lot of people, but I farm. And we farm basically right up to the creek. So if you put in grass, can we tear that grass out?
there is supposed to be per code a minimum of a 10-foot filter strip to protect the water.
Okay, well, 50 feet is bigger than 10 feet.
Well, the 50-foot,
Yeah, I
just so
know.
we're clear, the 50-foot does include the ditch itself, so from the bank to the bank.
Okay.
And then there's a small easement on the other side. So on the one side, the working side, we are roughly, not consistently, in some areas, we've narrowed it down and we attempt to save trees, but 25 foot from top of bank, and there's to be a minimum of a 10-foot filter strip from the top of the bank
So you are
within
changing
the
the use of the
easement.
land.
I wouldn't call that a change of use.
If you're planting it and you're putting it in grass, that's a change. And I don't mean to pick on Don.
Well, no, and we've had a conversation
conversation.
before. One of the many people we've met.
And from what I think you said, chances are you're not gonna do the whole thing. You're only doing spots.
Well, we're gonna have access through along.
Well, I understand.
But, and I will say, we have had this occur before where people have planted in an easement. But I will, and I'll put this on the record, it is not a best practice to plant up to a waterway.
Well, no, I agree. But right now, for years, we've been doing it that way.
And for years, we've had ditches that accumulate sediment at an
I'm just
incredible
saying, there's gonna
rate.
be a change to the land.
I wouldn't call that a change. I would call that instituting, if anything, a best practice, but the land use itself has not changed. It's still gonna remain agricultural in use.
But not plant. All right. Oh, this is for you guys. And I understand the intent to suspend. I would rather have a letter that says there will be no cost to the landowner. And I think that's gonna be echoed out there. Just saying. Also, before this gets going, is somebody gonna come out and walk us through exactly what's gonna happen? Because Don and I have talked, but there are still, like tonight, if they're not gonna do the whole thing and they're only gonna do spots, that's different than what we've talked about. So, will somebody come out and we're gonna do this, this, and this?
I
Or is
can,
it just, surprise, we're here, and you have to
no,
live with it?
no, and we can go over your parcel and show exactly what obstructions there are, if any. And so
Yeah,
where
we've
we'd be
talked.
going.
I don't mean
And,
to-
no, I know, actually, I'm used to it. But, and then the other thing though is really though, there is one thing that's gonna be almost constant, and that is kind of clearing that area along from the one side so that we're able to reach it, if nothing's needed today, in the future. So to be able to perform the inspection, so we wouldn't leave, because when we walked the ditch, and literally we were walking in the ditch to be able to see most of it, we would be looking to clear one side so that we would have a path so that we can do inspections and move the equipment efficiently rather than in and out, when in some places that ditch might be, quarter mile away from any road or more, and having to bring equipment in and out to each individual spot, we would be traveling along the ditch. So clearing would more than likely occur. Now, on your property, if I recall, there are a couple of areas where, yes, there would be some clearing, and then there are other areas where you
There's
wouldn't
nothing
see
there.
it, correct.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Thank you. Oh, go ahead.
I was gonna just to refresh my memory, because I knew you looked familiar and the name was familiar, and I know I had met with you. Were you the one where we went in the ATV?
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah.
So,
Oh,
yep. Yeah. Oh, and in addition to that, there is within the notes for the contractors to notify all property owners now 48 hours prior to any work, so they wouldn't just appear unannounced.
it's somewhere I read in there too that dirt's gonna be removed.
There is,
If we say no, we want the dirt.
we would actually encourage our contractor, because it's to their benefit, to work with the local farmers who can take the dirt. So they have to haul it off-site and out of the easement area and out of the floodplain. But hauling
Yeah, I
is
understand, they just
expensive,
can't
so,
pile it up along the
right.
edge, but
So,
I've got holes I can go in.
more than likely, they would definitely want to talk to you.
Thank you.
Yes, and as it was mentioned, it would be part of the, as Don mentioned earlier, it would be part of the resolution that there would be no assessments, the total cost be paid for by ARPA, by county ARPA funds.
I'm just saying what I read in the letter, and
Hey.
I understand the intent, but intents aren't always,
Hey,
you know, I intended to be not only good looking, but rich by this point. And one of them I'm short on.
And we could always have Greg Peltz, Assistant County Prosecutor Peltz, go over that again and the requirement by Ohio Revised Code to send out the letter.
Yeah, the language is in the letter, right? Like, we are required by law to send out the notice detailing the information that assessments may be levied. And I'm speaking on behalf of the board, but we are required by law to send that language in the letter in that specific way. Trust me, I think I'm speaking for the board and everyone else who's involved in these ditch projects, that if we could change that, we would. But that's why we went to great lengths to explain that in the letter. But once you get lawyers explaining things, things tend to get confusing. So the long and short of it is, and I don't mind speaking for the board if the board's fine with that,
Yes.
there is never an intent to implement or impose those assessments. But the dang letter has to say that anyways, so.
No, but when you're talking assessments, you're talking about the 2.8 million. I think the concern, when we've had these debates before, is 50 years from now. And that's what we can't control. But what we're really concerned about is usually in the past, the reason why a lot of these ditches never got cleaned is we never had money, right? And then we would have to assess the owners when we would do this type of a project. And now with the way you guys have it set up, there was already a couple $1 million in the account. It's a successful program. We got ARPA funds. We put another $6.5 million in it in order to accelerate some of the cleaning. And that's why when we say we're not charging the homeowners an assessment, it's that initial assessment, right? I see Don's shaking my head, so you're shaking your head. So it's one of those things where we've had other hearings where people said, yeah, but what about 50 years from now? And we can't answer that question. Does that make sense, Greg?
Correct.
Okay,
There is a maintenance fee on there as well.
correct.
Well, there's.
But that's what Don
right.
talked about.
It's
was-
the board's intent to not impose a construction assessment and also not impose the maintenance assessment. Commissioner Moore's comment was that, essentially 50 years from now, a board of county commissioners can rip that up and impose maintenance if they so choose.
they could do that today. Okay. Someone else from that side of the room, please?
Hi there, my name is Dan Wilson. I live at 14400 Meadow Creek Lane in LaGrange. I submitted some previous communications to you. I don't know if the commissioners had a chance to review it or not yet, but I hope you did. I just want to make a few comments more about my personal situation as opposed to the overall project. I don't vehemently disagree with the project. However, I would like your consideration about some points I'd like to make. First, I'd like to address the issue of the letter and the web link. Despite Don being able to get in there, I think myself, as well as many others, could not. If you type the text from the letter into the web address, it does not work. I was computer savvy enough to find the information, so that was good, but I'm not sure others would be. Secondly, when I was able to access the link to the final document, as it's stated on the website, it says final document, you click the link. The document as of 3:30 this afternoon still indicates it's a preliminary report. It still indicates the access point on Parsons Road as opposed to the access at the end of Meadow Creek Lane. So it's my feeling that the residents should have access to whatever the final report is going to be before a hearing like this so that we can be informed and educated. Also like to address the point by the other gentleman who said they're not taking any land. I understand there's a difference between taking and appropriating land. I believe in my case, land is being appropriated for an easement, and I believe that I deserve some compensation for that. Let's see. I'd also like to note that I bought my house in March of 2023, which was before the petition was filed. It was also before the first notification for, if there was a first notification. Teresa did indicate that there was notification sent to the previous owner, but I did not receive a notification about a view of the project, nor the first meeting. It's been over a year and a half ago that this was sent out. So I find it hard to believe that someone at some point didn't notice that an address was updated in the document, and maybe they should reach out to a resident. That may not be legally required, but it seems like it would have been appropriate, and it was not. So the first letter I received was the one that was dated September 10th, which is the letter of all the confusion that people are talking about. According to the revised code, I believe the county engineer is required to prepare a schedule of damages, which according to them is 0. Just to let you know, I'm one of the people that was identified as adjacent to the ditch, which I'm still not sure exactly what that means, but I take it to mean that the ditch actually enters my property and exits my property. There's a small loop that goes down into my property and exits it. So the ditch and the easement will be on my property for a small amount. So I feel that, first of all, I should receive, what was the wording? A form of notice to intent to acquire, according to the revised code. I feel like I should get some compensation for the land, even though it's a small amount, even if it's a square inch. And I feel that there are damages. I feel that cutting down large trees, I think they have value. I think the fact that there will be a clearing in my backyard that cuts down a natural privacy barrier is damage. I think those trees have value. I think my privacy has value. I think the view out my back porch has value. And I think that should be considered. Let's see. All right, so, also just mention, I don't have any water issues currently, so I actually objected to being included in the area that you call the benefit area. I know there's counterpoints to that, so I won't belabor that point. You're taking a small easement on my property. I'm county engineer, no land value. I believe that's it. I believe that pretty much sums it up. I'd appreciate your consideration. I feel like there is land being appropriated for an easement on my property. Again, that I deserve some compensation, and that's it. Oh, finally, I'd like to just thank Don. Don and I spoke a while back with a few preliminary questions, very helpful, and actually, as everyone has been. So I do appreciate the willingness to talk about it, and that's it. Thank you.
Did you say
Thank you,
something
Mr.
about
Wilson.
no trees being cut down?
Not no trees, and we'd have to look at his property. I know Mark was rapidly trying to locate the property to see exactly what would be removed if he could make it out from the aerial photos. But I know in some places we've skinnied some easements in order to save some trees. And then there will be, I think, in a couple areas where some trees will remain either along the ditch where they're not in danger of dying or falling in anytime soon. So we are doing our best to keep as much as possible, but I can't, right now, I couldn't promise any property owner that we would not remove brush and some trees. But we have gone out to several places and determined that trees that people were concerned about would not be impacted. But for Mr. Wilson, at this point in time, I couldn't say for certain that there are certain trees that we know we could save or could not.
That goes back to my comment about having a final plan in place so people can educate themselves and understand what exactly.
Let me ask the question then differently.
Yep.
I thought you said that it was just gonna be spotting and you weren't taking out trees. That's what I heard. Maybe
Okay.
Maybe I misunderstood.
Misunderstood a bit,
But I
because we are
heard-
looking at getting that easement created so that we could go along the ditch rather than in and out 300 times to the ditch. In some places, I mean, you're talking over a quarter mile from a roadway. So we would be looking at clearing that easement. And there are some places where we're on one side of the ditch, then we cross over to the other because of constructability.
I know, Don,
But-
I'm just asking a simple question.
Yep.
I thought you said there'd be no trees and you'd be just working on,
No, I did say that we'd be clearing the easement area. And that in some places, we had skinnied the easement to protect some trees or, and then, but we would be clearing along one side of the ditch so that the equipment can get to all of the different obstructions. And we're not doing the entire reshaping of a ditch and scraping the bottom and reshaping the sides, but we're going in 300-plus spots and removing log jams, removing sandbars. But it's not 5.2 miles of construction. It's 315 or so points along that 5.2 miles. But along one side of the ditch, we will be having an impact of
And you have a
clearing.
5-mile easement.
Yeah. Correct. In some places, it'll be 25 feet. In some places, it might be 21 feet. But there will be an easement and there will be a need for some clearing. And in some places, there's no need for clearing.
President, if I could just say one more thing. The final point I wanted to mention, is part of my claim for damages as well, which I forgot, is that I feel like having an easement on my property is detrimental to property value and resale value. And I think if you ask anyone, they would agree that if they were to buy two properties, one with an easement, one without, they would buy the one without. So I feel that ought to be considered as well as far as what type of damages I may incur due to decrease in property value.
Thank you.
I guess that's a legal argument. There's different kinds of easements. Not every easement reduces property value, especially if it's an easement in order to maintain and avoid flooding. So there is a difference, and that would be a property by property legal issue. Somebody else from that side of the room that would like to speak next? Please come up.
Good evening.
Good evening.
My name is David Mulder, excuse me, and I live on 15255 Rhonda Lane, LaGrange Township. A lot of the questions I had, I did go to the website. I'm not good on the computer, but the website wasn't very clear on a lot of things, and have been answered here after the gentleman's presentation here. The access road I have a question about. Is it going to be on the east or west side of, I call it Kelner's Creek.
Yeah.
Because once I bought it, when I paid for it, it goes through the woods, it's got natural rocks in the bottom, so I call it a creek instead of a ditch.
Yeah, in that area. It would be on the west side, so on your side.
Well, I own like 576 feet, east and west,
Yeah.
and the west side, would put it on our side is, same as Mr. Frank Lupinski's side. And how wide would it be if it was on that side?
Without looking, but more than likely it'd be 25 foot from the top of the bank of the ditch.
Because right now it's a 50-foot easement.
Correct, and that includes the width of the ditch
Yes.
and the other side having an easement, a small easement on that side. So it'd be 20, from the western bank, it would be 25 foot.
This new easement would be 25.
Correct, on the working side of the
Now,
ditch.
yeah, I don't want to back up the water for the village and LaGrange or anyone, but right now, there's a big oak tree that's going to settle down in the creek soon, but it flows if it's occasionally goes over the bank, the next day, I'm amazed at how quickly it goes down. So it's not like, it could get dammed up, but it's not like it's not flowing. But if you take that much off of my west side, that really cuts into what the property looks like. The value of the property that the gentleman back there was maybe talking about. Also, I get out of order here when you get old. I just wondered, may I ask, I guess I could ask, how many of the commissioners have actually walked any of the creek?
It's funny, Commissioner.
I say
I was
sure.
just thinking, Commissioner Moore and I walked that, I think, in 2021, right, Teresa? Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, we had our boots on that day. We went,
If-
Commissioner Moore and I went.
If you'd have gone before this recent rain, you just need to have rubbers on, you know, but.
We had 'em on.
I
Yeah.
just wondered, so, but that would make a big difference. I don't know, it'd make a difference to you, Frank, if it was on, would you rather have?
You gotta
it
be in
on
the
east
microphone,
side?
sir. Teresa's not hearing anything
Well, I'm
he's
just
saying.
saying, I
I'd
don't
rather
think
have it on
anybody's
the
hearing
east
it,
side.
really.
He's not,
And here's a couple.
Can you speak in the microphone, please?
Okay, and another couple from Rhonda Lane, and Dave indicated that they would rather have it on the east side. And
We have our bridge.
and kind of refer to Mayor Kincannon made a good point about the letter. It's still very confusing because they tell you that you're not going to have to pay anything, and then they put in a sheet here that you're supposed to fill out and send back. I hadn't figured that one out, but and what I was going to talk about, Mr. Lipinski did, is the board has budgeted funds to cover all costs associated with the project. It is not the intent of the Board of Commissioners to charge you the scheduled assessments and damages, and the Board of Commissioners intends to suspend the collection of the maintenance assessment. And you cannot pass something instead of saying intends, that says you shall suspend. Because I think in legal terms, if something says you shall, that means you must. It's not, I don't know what type of legislation you pass, but when you do this, but if you could get the wording about those maintenance charge, like my the total assessment, not the maintenance fee, for my property is $2,144. And again, it says it says I benefit from it, but when it goes over to the bank, it's natural. It's woods. It goes down, but now we have a lot more houses. It impacts Pheasant Run, 500 plus, Greyhawk. None of this was there, and sometimes too many homes are built in the area where there shouldn't be any. And I think I've taken up enough of your time but if someone could get back about looking at, and also about what trees you would, I have not seen anybody out there in the last 3 years looking at it. I could have missed it, but I'm pretty nosy, and I usually catch somebody. And my other thing, on the access road, if I get in the mic, on the access road, I pictured this new road along the ditch, and all I could picture was four-wheelers and snow machines, because going down it. But you did did I hear you say something about gates in different places on this access road?
Yes, we had met with several different property owners to be able to figure out if they would accept, if it would make sense for us to put a gate that would be locked. The county would have a key, of course, the property owner would have a key as well, unless it would be right on their line, in which case they have no purpose to go onto their neighbor's properties. We're trying to stop the trespassing, but we are looking at putting in gates to make it much more difficult, so.
So you understand what I was trying to convey about somebody, oh, here's a path along this,
Oh, yes.
now we got a
It-
place to
It was
ride.
made pretty clear to us at the last hearing as well. And in our meetings, one-on-one with different property owners across the county, not just along this ditch. So unfortunately, you're not unique in this problem, but it appears to be an issue countywide of people using other people's property for ATVs and snowmobiling when we have snow.
And one thing, I do have a big oak now that's gonna end up in the creek. That's good wood. I don't know how much value that there is to that, but is there any way that the county can recoup?
Don, why don't you address that, because in the past, you've said that the first, when they do that, don't the owners have option to use that wood themselves? I mean, you've addressed this in the past.
Yeah, we would need to put that in the bid if a property owner wants their brush or their tree, the wood from the trees. We would need to know to put that in the contract, because oftentimes what a contractor will do is he'll see an oak like that, and he'll reduce what he's gonna bill us, knowing that he's gonna get money from that oak. But we can specify if a property owner has a tree that they want, or before we go to bid, if the property owner took the tree down themselves, of course, they could keep it. They're more than welcome to clear anything they would like, but typically, they'd rather have us do it and put in the contract to the contractors to put the wood there. We would just need to know beforehand so we can get that into the bid spec.
Okay, thank you very much for your time.
Well, my concern is if you got walnut or oak, that's some expensive wood, and what you just said was basically in the bid packet as it stands today, that the individual digging and cutting is gonna benefit, not the owner.
Yes.
Well, that's what I heard. So how do we make it so that
Again.
how do we make it so that the benefit is the
example-
owners of the property?
Yeah, an example would be along, and Peter, correct me when I get wrong, but like prior to Got Ditch, we had talked, in this one, it was more about, they wanted certain trees protected that we
Right.
were able to work around. There were a couple trees they wanted taken down, and then pile the wood elsewhere on their property that they would take care of later. So we were able to put that into the bid spec. But I don't know that we could we might be able to write a generic bid spec, but we would need to kind of go property by property, because not every property owner is gonna want the brush that we're clearing on, and.
I don't think anyone's gonna want brush. I'm just talking
But,
about,
well, even
you know,
trees, and honestly, I don't know that we've done an actual inventory of every tree as far as type and value as much as we have this, when we've met with property owners, this tree they wanna save, this tree they don't care, this tree please take down. Yeah, I don't know, Peter, if you can add,
So Commissioner, you're absolutely right. What's that?
I think so.
it's
You're
on.
absolutely correct, but the discount, if you will, for the value of the wood, unless the owner has made some specific request, actually goes to the county. It reduces the construction bid if there's some salvageable wood. I don't think we've ever had that lately in the 9 years I've been here. But if somebody wants, and Don just mentioned it, we had that hearing, just a week or so ago, where the lady said, geez, tell me which trees you want removed. I'll take them down, and my contractor will pay for the lumber.
Mhm.
And that's certainly feasible to do between now and next October, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's another possibility.
Peter, can't we just, these trees, technically, they belong to the property owners already. And we're gonna do what we need to do. Can't we just create something that says that the property owner can petition and can have the salvage rights for anything that's on their property that we're removing? and that removes our contractor from the liability of having to deal with it. You know, they leave it for the homeowner if that's what they want to do.
Does that cause the tree to be removed, or does that cause the tree to be left there?
Left on their property, but left on the property, but not in the right of way.
No, we're talking about
Not
the
an
right of
easement.
way. We're talking about right of way trees, right?
Yeah, easement trees.
Yeah. So, by the way, the commissioners can decide whatever they see fit to decide. That's why you have the big.
I think it's the same thing. If somebody wants to keep the dirt, let them keep the dirt. If somebody wants to keep the wood from the tree, let them keep the tree for the wood. But, you know, the process has to go through, but
Sure.
I can't imagine a contractor's gonna be complaining about something that he thought he was gonna have to pay for, but he doesn't.
Or what I just heard Peter say is like, if they want it, they should cut it down.
Sure, that would be the quickest way to get the value into the hands of the owners.
Okay.
And then you don't have the contractor saying, okay, now I have to stack up the wood over here and so forth. So that would be the easiest way to handle it, right?
I think the point being that we wanna find a way to accommodate it.
Sure, and you mentioned the soil, you know, the easement's 50 feet wide. If you were to move the soil to the 51-foot mark, and that's not in the floodplain or whatever, in the wetlands or something, that satisfies the contract. And I think the low bidders are pretty savvy. They're gonna talk to every landowner, whether they be a farmer or not, and say, hey, do you want some of this dirt so I don't have to haul it across town and lose it somewhere, or stop it somewhere else? So that's kind of in the process. Naturally, the best bids are gonna have something like that built into it, and the county doesn't have to manage every shovelful of dirt or every.
Agreed. I wouldn't wanna see the county in between an entrepreneur and a homeowner both getting what they want.
Right, absolutely.
Okay. Someone else from that side of the room? Yes, sir, please.
Good evening. My name is Scott Peters. I live at 14877 Whitehead Road. And I'm just speaking on behalf of myself and my family. We have a bridge that crosses Kelner Creek, and it's the only access we have to our home. I just want to make sure that any easement or anything like that does not affect, and create more erosion, for my bridge. I've got a lot of cost and effort into building that bridge, making sure that that bridge is a safe way to get to my home. And I want to make sure that that easement does not affect, and increase the erosion process. I guess I'm not completely clear on the easement, and will that change the shape of the ditch near my bridge so that it speeds up that erosion process?
I believe, and Mark's looking at the plans now, but if I remember the bridge in question, one, it's a good bridge, and we are staying away from it. And the nature of the project itself, we are not changing really the bank. We're removing, again, log jams that could be problematic for you. We're removing sandbars that, again, could be problematic. And then we are taking down trees that are like growing out of the side, the bank, or right on the edge that appear to be dead, half dead, and we anticipate them shortly becoming a log jam. So those were the things we were looking at removing that would impact the flow of water, and most of it is not to necessarily accelerate it, but to just allow it to flow free. But we're not looking at reshaping. And I think that, from what I heard, that was your big concern.
That is my big concern, I've shored up those sides. There is a good foundation to the bridge. It's got footers in the whole 9 yards. I just don't want anything to, speed up the process of breaking that down, because it involves a lot of work and a lot of cost in the future.
And Mark just said that we have no work planned right around in there. There's no work needed.
Perfect.
In fact, the plan's called Do Not Disturb for the bridge, the riprap, all the stuff in that area.
Perfect. All right. Thank you. I appreciate that.
Thank you,
Thank you, sir.
Mr. Peters. Someone else from the left side of the room? Please?
Hi, my name is Tracy McCombs. My husband and I just recently purchased a property on Dill Court. It's got a main house and the back garage was turned into an apartment. My concern is the ditch in the back is literally 4 feet from the back side of the house. And there's no logs in it jamming it up, but it's completely filled with weeds and big stalks of stuff, and it's my understanding that you guys are only removing the sediment and the log jams. So how would you address that?
I heard Dill Court. Do you have an address?
112 and 114.
We're looking.
Okay.
Are you on the east side or the west side of the ditch?
Thank you.
And the ditch is how far from your building?
4 foot. And therefore, I would like to request a culvert pipe, if at all possible.
Trying to pull up the ditch and your address just to,
Okay.
where'd it go? One, two, Dill Court. Okay, where's it?
Try clicking on the,
Oh,
is there a, is that the, so, is that Dill Court?
no, let me try again. 112 Dill Court, LaGrange. All right.
There you go.
All right.
So this piece.
Yeah, so this is the part you were looking. Okay. One moment, we found it. You've got 2 ditches.
Yes, we have 2 ditches. They're both relatively close. Once we acquired that property, we had some mold problems in the house that we had to have remediated, and that is another reason why I would like to request the culvert pipe.
I'm just a little curious how the easement would work if you need enough easement for vehicles and traffic, and 4 foot, and it's on the west side. There had to be something already contemplated in the design.
I believe we'd be working from the east side in this case, which is a farm field, so on the other side. I said, we go back and forth a bit, but
So you would just you'd take the equipment and cross over the east side, but how would you get, that's good for an excavator, how would you get,
well, we
truck
would
traffic?
have an entrance to that side of the ditch. It would be coming off of East Main.
okay,
So she's not too far from the roadway, and the ditch is actually going along the road, so,
there you
or
go.
not along the road, but along, across. We do not have a whole lot of, really any work proposed right there, so. I've got a request for a culvert. We can take a look at that. I don't know that I'd hold out a whole lot of hope, but we'll come out and meet with you, and you're in the village, correct?
Correct.
So we would have to work with the village as well.
Whose responsibility is it to clean that ditch out?
Currently, today, before a vote goes, it's yours. It would be, this is where the county commissioners, through this petition process, would actually take on that responsibility.
Okay.
So that's the whole purpose of this entire thing, is to transfer what is hundreds of people's individual responsibilities to maintain a ditch, to allow that water to flow, and to put it upon, or have the county take it upon itself to be able to do that. So, and the reason I say is I don't have a whole lot of information, and you are real close to where the existing part of Kelner that is on maintenance, it's basically just to the south of East Main. So that part is county, and then when it crosses East Main, then it's private again. That portion of the ditch had been petitioned many years ago.
When will I hear about the culvert pipe?
Well, first off, I want to be able to meet and have the engineer take a look at what the conditions are, how deep the ditch is there, what size culvert would be needed, and then what permitting, if anything, we would need to go through if it would actually make sense. And then I'm not, just because right now there is an issue with the water, if the culvert can't be large enough, it's not going to solve your problem. And culverts typically don't solve flooding. It may shift it, but it's not going to solve it unless we can make sure everything is open up. Now, the project overall should help, because we're removing from where you're at about 300 plus obstructions between you and an outlet for that water. So the water should move much better.
Okay. All right.
And we'll take a look at that and see if there's something else maybe that we could do as well.
Thank
But
you.
please call
I
me.
appreciate it. Will do.
Did you bring lots of business cards today, Don?
Yes, I did.
Anybody else from the left side of the room?
My name's Dave Liller, and I'm at 417 North Center Street. I couldn't tell which side of the ditch we're planning on working on, but that's our rear parking lot. It's a commercial property. And
What's the last name?
Liller.
Thank you.
We're looking.
For a section of this, we're on the south side, but then we get to where your fence comes in, we shift over and we're on the north side.
So basically the entire rear of my parking is where you're at?
Yes, we would be, right. We would not be intending to take out any of that parking though. The plan would be to work on that edge and clean the ditch there.
I think the issue is there's a mound, about a 6-foot mound there. We put in about 20 years ago, and there's more than 100 trees there. It creates both a screen and security for our back lot. It's a gated lot. We don't need a fence yet, but if they create an easement and clear that out, you're just pretty much putting a driveway right into the back of my parking lot.
Is it parking lot, the mound and trees, and then the ditch?
Yes.
And are we planning on cleaning the ditch from the parking lot side of that?
So it looks like where that mound is, we can actually access, there's an obstruction there, but we can access from the north side of the property, or the north side of the ditch at that point. So I believe this is the mound you're talking about, would that be right?
Well, the
So-
mound runs all the way back.
Okay. Oh, you're saying it
Yeah, it runs all the way
continues.
back.
Okay. Yeah, so we would have a couple of obstructions here we have to take out. This one we could access from the north side, and then these other ones from the north side.
So the question would be kind of this area in here, how we can,
Minimize, yeah. Problem is, we can't get from the other side because there's a building in the way. So we can't access from the north side on, over there.
I understand. I just want to remain whole throughout the whole thing. and-
Yeah.
we're working on it.
Maybe we can meet, with you and take a look at it and see how we can. Yep.
Well, if you can't get,
You put that mound in on the south side of the ditch,
Correct.
that kind of, I think, that, you know that there's trees growing out, right out of the middle of the ditch there. You're aware of that, right?
And out of that mound,
It's really, really bad.
right, mostly
That's
walnut
probably the worst
trees.
part of the ditch in the village of LaGrange, right there. And it forces, the mound forces water onto the ladies on the north side. I've been down there, she's called me a number of times. And she gets flooded out. It doesn't come onto your side, it goes on her side.
I understand.
Yeah.
But, you know, we run into the same circumstance as we did with the road project. How much is a parking spot worth? You know?
Sounds like the mound was created, though, to control the flooding from affecting you.
It wasn't. It was created as a barrier to allow that growth to
Just in
keep
the floodplain.
just the
Actually,
privacy. If you see
Illegal
it, you
fill.
can see it from the drone. If you look at the entire back property, it's completely coveted in. There's no way to enter it. I mean, on foot, but not by a vehicle.
That would be a spot for a gate there.
Right, but if the easement were on my side, which we'll talk about, but if the easement were on my side, you're taking 25 feet of my parking lot.
No, you'd still be able to use that as parking lot.
That's where the mound is.
That's not when you were talking to Mr. Lipinski, I understood that we couldn't.
Yeah, no, you can use that. Parking lot, yeah. I mean, so if you look at the edge of this, right, there'd be no reason that,
yeah, I
we're
mean,
basically right on the edge of the parking lot with our easement. You'd still be able to use that.
yeah, I
Right,
mean,
and
we'd
some
be
of
able
those
to.
cars aren't even pulled all the way back, but you can see the line going right
Right,
through the back. of
and
them.
we can skinny this a little bit, so. uh, The idea is really to give us room to work. We don't need 25 foot all the time. It would be just if something where we had to bring in the big equipment.
Yeah, I guess regardless, if you're working on my side, you're taking everything there. You're taking that entire screen away without putting anything back for privacy, both for me and my neighbor. You know, if you were living right there, would you want to look at all those cars? You know?
Well, we'll meet, there are probably a couple of different things going on. So and we'll take a better look, because it does look like the survey picked up about 4 foot, maybe. Does that sound about right?
4
There's
foot.
only,
The height?
yeah, there's not that much of a mound there.
It averages about 6, but it goes down as low as 4 in a couple spots, yeah. If I'm standing in a parking lot, on some of them I can barely see over it, but when you get closer to the buildings, it's lower.
I mean, that mound's all in the floodplain too, which is, should not be there.
Again, it was done 20 years ago.
Now's the time.
So I guess that's it. We'll just meet up and figure something out.
Yeah, and we'll work with keep the village involved as well.
Oh,
We haven't touched the right side.
right,
I don't know who's. left on
Mr.
the-
President,
thank you.
Mr. President, would you entertain a recess for a bathroom break for 5 minutes, sir?
I'd take it 7.5 in case there's a line,
Okay,
and then we'll
Thank
come
you.
back and get the right side of the room.
okay.
Well, I don't know, that was a loaded question.
That's a lot of issues. Thank you. Thank you, Commissioner.
Okay, folks, we are back live. I see we've lost a few people. They had their opportunity to speak and so forth. So is there anyone left on the left side of the room that wishes to speak? Okay. We can start on the right side of the room.
Tom Miller, 41500 Rachel Drive. So I'm going to reiterate a lot of the things that people have already mentioned, but maybe just for emphasis. Don did come out to my property, so very easy to work with, thank you. And my primary concern, mine and my wife's primary concern, is the view out the back. We, like my neighbor Dave, who spoke earlier, got a couple 100 feet, and the creek is relatively close to where the woods ends. And my concern is if they come through and do a lot of clearing, that's going to impact that view. So it was mentioned with respect to the trees that Don even said when he came out that we could flag trees we want to save, and then trees that we might want. Are we talking about, like for firewood, are we talking about the contractor coming out and dropping those, or do we have to drop them?
Don, you want to handle that?
Yeah. One, you're always welcome to drop any tree, but we're talking about having the contractor drop the tree and move it out of the easement to your property if
Okay.
you wanted a tree.
That would help me. Not a professional lumberjack, so I don't want to kill myself. And then the other request I have is when you came out, you said you would kind of mark about where the easement would be. I just want to keep it to a minimum so that I still kind of preserve the view I have and I don't just end up with lawn all the way right to the edge of the creek. Now I have maybe 30 feet of woods between my house and the creek.
Are you on the west side of the creek?
I am on the west side. It would be beneficial, I was just talking to some of my neighbors, if it could be on the east side, that would help things. But I think it's harder to get to from the road that way.
Just for the record, the one reason we end up being on the west side in this area is rough access, trying to access from the east, as well as there's a lot more wet woods. So it's much more difficult for us, much more expensive for us to work from that side. I think one of the advantages is the people are maintaining their property on the other side, so there's not as much in the way of wetlands to deal with, which makes it easier on the contractors and us to be able to do the work. And it minimizes the environmental impact, so.
But I think I'm on Rachel Drive, but Rhonda Lane's right there. So I'm kind of on the corner. I think everybody on Rhonda Lane, they're going to have the same issue that I have, where it's on the house side, not the far side, which is just wooded. And the far side would be the east side. So yeah, I don't know, can you guys come out beforehand and we can like mark the trees? Yes. Or exactly where it's gonna be?
Yes.
I understand why you wanna do this. You know, I don't want people in the village flooding, so I'm not, against it. I just wanna make sure that I keep the value of my property and the enjoyment as much as I can, so. And
That's
then
it.
probably when you guys come out, we'll get some of my other neighbors at the same time, so you
Yeah.
just knock everybody
That would
out.
be ideal if we could coordinate one meeting so we can just go along that.
So. Yeah, I think that's everything I got. So,
Thank you.
thank you.
Someone else? Oh. Someone else from the right side of the room? Did I see
Yeah.
someone get up?
Yeah, he's
Oh,
coming.
you are, okay. Oh, are you trying to stay off camera?
There you go.
Okay, Lico Ford, 15562 Whitehead Road.
Can you, sorry, can you say that address again?
15562 Whitehead Road.
Okay.
Which I didn't have any intent to talk, but there was a couple of things I wanted to bring up. Number one, I'm in the flooding house. I think I've emailed your office, Commissioner Michelle. Emailed you a couple of times about our house flooding, but our yard floods, but it's not because of Kelner ditch, whatever. But we were concerned because the letter, I understand the legalese and you have to put things in, but when you say, like, next to last paragraph, you may file an extension to the assessment. It says 5 days beforehand for this meeting. It kind of makes people like, what's going on? So I think that's what most people came in. So there could be something like, hey, after this assessment or after this meeting, I'm not sure if you can do that, but that kind of freaks people out, especially as you're getting letters also about property taxes going up, and then you get hit with this right afterwards. So I'm just giving my observations, but there we go. Also, if you guys have any places, or you're looking for a place to dump dirt, again, I'm in the flooding house. I will gladly take any dirt that you have. So I'll take one of your cars.
Thank you, Blake.
Yes.
Blake, what was your last name?
Ford, like the car company.
Oh, all right.
I do not drive one, though.
Elizabeth called me.
Yes, my wife did call you.
Looking at her note.
Thank you, sir. Next, please.
There's one right
Go to the microphone.
My name is Claire Reimer. I'm on 14230 Meadow Creek Lane, LaGrange. Don and Mark have been really wonderful to work with, and everything I hear is what I would like to have happen. My question is, Appendix C says it's the final plan. After hearing all this, it's not the final plan. And you have to have a final plan to give for the bid. Are we gonna be able to see that final plan? In my case, it's moving the access off the dangerous part on Parsons Road at the south end to the north end. And I would just really like to see that on a plan that says this is the plan. Because, I went through this whole thing and it shows that isn't the plan, even though it says final plan. So when do we get a final plan?
So Peter, are we in the conversation stage with Mr. Pickworth, or is it a done deal that we're moving off of that spot?
I met with Mr. Pickworth last week after we had talked very briefly at the fair, and he is going to make what was the term? He was going to give it some consideration. He wasn't going to oppose the project, and he was going to get back with me on how we could work something out that would be beneficial to both the project and him. So it took us a little bit of time to even explain like where the access would be and what we were looking to do, so that we're not creating, and correct me if I get it wrong, Ron, just yell at me, that we're not creating a path like a thoroughfare for the ATVs that he's already struggling with. And we had talked about, we weren't looking to put it on the property line where he's got 30-plus foot of trees, but we'd be looking to trim back his tree line a bit and kind of incorporate it with the field so that we're not making any apparent changes to the conditions that would be an invitation to trespass. And hopefully in us doing that and paring back his tree line, one of the things I said is maybe, that would help his crops there by getting rid of some of the shade, and he'd see a bit of an improvement. But Ron and I have to finalize that conversation up, and he may have a different idea from when we last met. And I had Mark with me as well.
Okay, so that says to me we're still.
Well, no, let
Still
me
in
help you
limbo
out.
here.
Yeah, 'cause it sounds like to me, the question is, we're looking to vote on a final plan today and we don't have a final plan. How's that?
Yeah, that's
Okay.
pretty close to what I was
I thought you were
starting to
saying
think.
that.
And more I hear, it's getting less and less final.
Well, what's going on, I think, is we're helping or bending to help people out.
Yeah,
And that's what, which is
yeah,
good,
These guys have been
which is
very
good, right.
accommodating, trying to help. I appreciate
Right.
that.
But the argument then becomes, we have a hearing that we have to vote on, and if we vote on, are we really allowed to vote on a final plan?
I'll defer to Greg, of course, but what I'd probably ask for, like in this case, would be, we've got a couple of steps to do, but is to set the terminis of the project, which that hasn't changed. And then on the access, we do have one change in access that we would recommend based on, different from the plan. And that would be to go to the end of, and I always get the road wrong, it's Meadow Creek. I want to call it Meadow View always. But Meadow Creek Lane rather than Parsons. And then we can work the final easement and get that drawn up, because the final plat that shows the project and establishes the permanent easement isn't done until the project is complete.
As
Peter?
built, right.
As built. So we have the ability to move some of this until, or finalize it. We've got some time, but I would ask for that direction from the board, which would be consistent with the board then actually outlining what is to be done based upon the hearing. Greg, does that sound?
Well, it has, in your opinion, has a final plan been altered or changed or modified in any way? It doesn't.
The plan for improving the ditch, no, that has not changed.
The route, the Termini, the access, the end of it.
There would be a change on one access, I would believe.
Okay.
Yeah, the plan shows access at a different place than what everybody's saying it's going to be now. It's very clear. It's on Parsons Road and corner of Parsons and Meadow Creek Lane.
Will that affect the bid at all?
Minimally.
Because what we've generally been comfortable doing is, I guess, negotiating, for lack of a better word, like the gentleman with the bridge, right? Just clarification that his bridge would be untouched, that, nothing like that would happen. Negotiating trees, we've traditionally done that kind of more or less in the hearing, right?
Yes.
That's going to affect the bid, so we want to take care of that soon so that the bid can reflect that accordingly. If we were extending the Termini,
right,
extending any of that, then yes, we'd be modifying the final plan, and that would be outside the bounds of this hearing, so to speak. But if we're just altering an access road, correct?
Correct.
We're not creating another access road.
Not an additional. It would be, instead of coming from one spot, we're coming from another, working off of a right-of-way, and then getting down to the ditch. So we'd still have clearing to do. There'd probably be there would be a change in cost. It'd be probably slightly more expensive, but it would be much safer for our personnel and for contracting or contractors. And in the scope of the overall project, it would be a rounding error, if that.
Yeah, but my concern is, Greg, is that, if we're voting on a final plan and then you guys can't come to terms, it's like the government has more power in negotiating, because here it is. This is what we're doing.
Mm-hmm.
And that's right. I think that's what I'm kind of hearing, is we're voting on a final plan, and are we just tweaking? Is that what you're trying to say?
Correct. It'd be just like similarly we've done in the past where we've modified the extent of the easement.
Or the access to the easement.
Correct. And, it'd be, I think it would be, from what I understand and from what I could gather, I think the board would be well within their rights to say that we're just simply modifying certain things and we're not altering the final plan in such a way that would necessitate a stopping of this hearing, collecting new evidence, creating, for lack of a better word, an amendment to that final plan, and then hearing the evidence on that amendment to the final plan, right?
Correct.
Is that fair? Okay.
That's
But
fair.
would they have to come back to this board to say, okay, you've talked to every landowner, this one here wants to keep this tree, this one here wants a different access? Do we have to come back to modify that?
No, because we're not modifying the access, right? We're just, and I'm not trying to use the words modify and alter interchangeably, but from what Don explained, there is an access on the property, correct?
Correct.
And as we've discussed today, that access will be changing?
We'll be relocating it from off of Parsons Road to the end of Meadow Creek Lane. And it's still, I mean, so there's a change on where we would go in to the ditch at that section of it.
Okay, not trying to pull teeth here, but what was the prior access point?
It was off of Parsons Road, was what was originally recommended. We met with Claire. We met with a couple of other property owners, and then after conversations with Claire and looking at the existing conditions, it was determined, even talking to staff, this was not an ideal place to try and access the ditch, being at the bottom of, or at the base of two hills.
And then the proposed modification of that access point is what?
To come off of the northern end of Meadowview Creek.
It's like a third of a mile road moving north.
But within the termini.
Right.
Of the project.
I think given that information, the board is within its discretion to, accept that. We're not modifying the engineer's final plan in any fashion. The termini, the course, everything has stayed the same relative to the project, right?
Correct.
We're just, okay. I think it'd be an entirely different situation if we had, say, one access road, and then it was determined between now and whenever that 4 more access roads or 2 more access roads are going to happen. I think we're maybe moving towards a modification of the plan. I mean, changing the plan, right? So I think we're within the bound. The board, from what I understand, the board is within their discretion to accept that and move forward, meaning we don't need a new final plan. The hearing doesn't need to be continued, any of that.
Mr. President, am I allowed to interject in these things?
Well, this man has the floor first.
So I guess the question I have is that, given this, your assessment, you have this opportunity that was presented some 7 weeks ago, but hasn't been finalized. What is our chance of getting that finalized before? And if we pass it tonight and say that we want that access to be that way so that we can go to bid in 30 days, can we get that done in 30 days to go to bid?
Based on my conversation with Mr. Pickworth, who's behind me, I would say yes.
Okay.
What does Mr. Pickworth say? I'm in agreement.
Okay, thank you. And then I think that's a modification, if you will, it's an accommodation for the general public good, which is the whole purpose of this project. Thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else from the right side of the room? Did you want to take a couple of additional comments?
If you don't mind.
No? Let's get this done.
I'll make it quick. So again, Dan Wilson, 14400 Meadow Creek Lane. Just on the last point, I don't want to be contrary to Claire because he's a nice neighbor down the street. If you change that termini or the access point, it's actually going to be a significant change for the rest of us on Meadow Creek with the trucks driving up and down the street to accomplish this project. So in my view, it is a major change to the plan. And I think that the people who are going to be affected by that change, i.e. the increased traffic up and down, should have the opportunity to look at the final plan and comment on the final plan before you vote. I guess that's it for that. I have some other things I was going to say, but I've already said my piece. I think I would also recommend seeking your legal counsel to see if what you're doing to me personally by appropriating land for an easement is actually a legal thing to do, because I don't believe it is according to the revised code.
Good.
Thank you.
As I indicated, I think that the experience so far of myself as far as these hearings as well is that we're not putting a gas pipeline underneath your property or electric lines overhead or impairing the use of your land in any way except for an easement to temporarily use it and maintain the ditch, which should be, in your best interest. So, that's a question for a lawyer. I don't see.
I respectfully disagree with you, but I understand your comment.
That's
and
okay.
I also understand your
That's okay.
your suggestion, so thank you.
And the good news is that America has 10% of the world's population, but 24% of the lawyers, so.
That is true. Thank you very much.
You should be able
for
to
your
find
time.
one.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, sir.
May I respond?
Yes.
You have to say your
Name
name
and all
again.
that. Claire Reimer, 14230 Meadow Creek Lane. I know where Dan's coming from, but roads are made for hauling things, when people are building a house, when people are putting in swimming pools, when people are pouring concrete. The road is there to accommodate equipment, and in this case, we're clearing out a ditch. The road's there to accommodate that, in my view. That's what roads are for. Not driving along muddy banks of creeks and screwing up everybody's property back and forth. Use the road that's there. That's all I really have to say. I think that's what roads are for.
Yes, thank you. And had that been, I would ask you to consider that had this opportunity presented itself earlier in the design, would it still be the same conversation if we were using Meadow Brook instead of Parsons Road? Yeah, I'm always reluctant to not know to the gentleman. Yeah.
I'm not objecting to the use of the road. I'm objecting to the people not having the proper information to be informed about what's going on before you vote.
Okay, I agree, but I always hesitate to not incorporate. I don't think there's a time where it's too late to do something better. Okay, and so, on that basis, they've uncovered. I'm a little disappointed in 7 weeks to the fair. It sounds like Mr. Pickworth's very accommodating. I'm kind of curious if the staff has exercised the proper allocation of time to get this done. So, but it sounds to me like we've figured a better way for the safety of the community, and we should incorporate that as we go out to bid, so that, and then that puts the pressure on Don and Mr. Zwick to get this thing done before it goes out to bid. We put the ball in Mr. Pickworth's court. So, any other folks that would like to comment or re-comment? I want to begin by saying that these hearings, while they take up a lot of time and stuff, I'm amazed at the amount of thought and process that goes into it. I'm just a little curious. I was here in July for the second hearing, and that some of the issues raised tonight could have been raised in July. And what that does for the commissioners is that puts us in a spot where trying to maintain the schedule and take advantage of the funding that's available to us, if we wait for a set of drawings that's 100% exactly what we're going to do, that almost never happens. I come from the construction world, and there's things called change orders, and they and some things investigated, and it finds out that we got to change something, and it doesn't change the how do you want to put it, the cost for the property owners. It may change the bid to the taxpayers and through the commissioners, and it's up to us to find the money to fund those change orders. But if we waited for there are some people that say that perfection is the enemy of progress. And if we wait for the perfect set of drawings, this project has been alive for multiple years. We've had multiple hearings. This one very productive, I will say, out of some of the hearings we've had, and we've come a long way since the second hearing in July. And I think that I counted about 10 or 11 people here that spoke tonight. And I would encourage that if we do elect to go forward, that their concerns be accommodated as best as possible and at least included in what we do going forward.
May I?
Go ahead,
Because
Greg.
you brought up one good point. I just wanted to, for point of clarity.
Only one?
Yeah, well, several. My apologies, several. But because Don, your explanation of what would change or modify from that access road, when you described that, to me, it did not touch upon the project itself. It did not touch upon the improvement, right? So I think we're fine there, and that's why I had mentioned that the board was within its discretion to accept that. I do have a question relative to your comment. Would that change of the access road, would that in any way change the cost associated with the project?
Minimally, it may, but the overall cost would remain the same.
Okay. Do you want to chime? I'm sorry. I didn't. No? Okay. Sorry. No, that was it. I just wanted to clarify that point.
Any other questions from the board?
He had his hand up. I don't know.
Did you have something else you wanted to add? If you had it, you got to come up.
'Cause I have a question for the mayor, but I wanted to have the public done first.
Yes.
I wasn't clear when he said, if we vote on the final plan, or you vote on the final plan today, and when we were talking about, to use your words, skinnying up the easement is, I mean, if you vote on that final plan, are we obligated to those lines that are already drawn? Or are you saying that we can still change them?
I don't know that you can change them, but the county engineer who is the agent for the job can execute a change order with the contractor if something's discovered that we need to do different than what we've planned.
Okay, that was my question. Thank you.
Okay,
Mr. President?
go ahead.
I'd like to request if we could have the mayor of LaGrange,
Oh.
Mayor McKinnon, come back up.
We want the mayor of LaGrange to come back up to the front.
Mayor McKinnon. The question
Gary
I had,
Kincannon,
Yep.
157 Taylor Boulevard, LaGrange, Ohio.
The question I had, Mayor, if you could go over for the public, the, where the money is coming from for for LaGrange, how much you have in that budget, how much that will leave you, overall, because we've had, just to even go back to snow plowing issue with Rochester Village, and she was telling us that's 20% of our budget for the snow plowing. So can you kind of just give everybody an overview of what this is costing you, what fund it's coming out of, et cetera?
Yeah, the Village of LaGrange has a stormwater fund, and we've had that for about 5-6 years. And every month, there's a $5 fee on everyone that gets a water bill. And that $5 fee goes into our stormwater fund. So that's the money we're using. I just got our fiscal officer to give me the numbers today. We have about $261,000 of unencumbered money, $192,000 of encumbered money, and I think some of that encumbered money is available. So we're right around the $300,000 that we need to cover our part of the, if we go forward the way we're 50-50.
And let me just ask you a question. If you do this, is that going to leave you short? Or are you going to have enough in your contingency to properly service your residents?
We're probably going to have to borrow a little bit of money or find some money out of the general fund, yes. It's gonna wipe out our stormwater fund, but how much do we get a month? We get about $5,000 a month. About $5,000 a month, so it'll start building back up.
About $60,000 a year then.
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you.
Does that answer your question?
That answers the question.
Anybody else have a question for me?
Commission, from time to time, I've watched the commission over the last 18 months, and we have been known to be very benevolent bankers. So, I would say we won't have any trouble getting to help match your resources to the project and help us go through it.
That would be greatly appreciated. Yes, we, being a small, well, about 2,600 individuals or residents, I think we got a total of about $400,000 ARPA funds, and with the kind of street repairs and everything that we had to do, well, none of that money's left. So,
Yeah. But I think you deserve some credit. You've tackled the problem your own way, and you will have skin in the game, which is kind of unusual for this.
yeah, well, we planned to all along.
Yes.
Thank you very much.
Any other questions from the board? Well, they tell me that as president of the board that I need to lead the conversation. So I'm going to reiterate that the commissioners have been very proud of the money that we allocated out of the ARPA funds to correct ditch problems around the county. And these problems, for obvious reasons, if we can't get along and get a ditch done when we're assessing everybody, by not assessing everybody, we should be able to get past some of those very hurdles. In the old days, I was told that the hearings often had a dispute between how much was my responsibility and how much was my neighbor's, and take me down and take him up and all that kind of stuff. So at the end of the day, I think that this money that was committed by the previous board before I got here to the resolution of these ditches, because God said all water must go north, okay? So it's all got to get north somehow, and when it doesn't and it starts going south or east or west, we're causing some problems for others. And so I think that the engineer's office has put a lot of time in on this. This project is big enough. They brought in, excellent resources at K.E. McCartney. They've done a general study on how to resolve this issue. And I think that if we can get past a few trees and some things and make some accommodations, what we used to call in the world of construction field engineering, but let's choose to agree that this project needs to be done for the benefit of so many people and for so many acres. This is actually, since I've been here, this has the largest impact of any of the ditches that we've worked on. And I think if there's one that begs the comment, a few little sacrifices for the greater good, this one meets that. So on that basis, I would, and this is where Greg has to earn his salt tonight, because I would make a resolution and he'll tell me it doesn't have enough words in it, so.
As always, the board has two options: motion to affirm or motion to dismiss.
Excuse me, I think we need to close the meeting further. I just saw my notes, so we need to close the public discussion. Thank you, Commissioner. I know you were headed there.
I will second that, Mr. President.
Any discussion? Commissioner Riddell?
Aye.
Commissioner Hung?
Yes.
Commissioner Moore?
Aye.
Thank you. So, but now that we've closed the discussion and we've heard from all the parties, including us at the board, I would like to make a motion to proceed with the project, with a couple of caveats that, so that people are protected. And that caveat is that number one, we finalize the number with the village of LaGrange, and we include the wording that says that, that their half of their piece of the pie up to $305,000. Okay, and that if it happens to go a little bit over that, we will pick up that difference. Okay, so that their maximum is $305,000. If hopefully it's less, but the second caveat would be that we firm up this access with Mr. Pickworth and take advantage of his congeniality and get a better access point. Yeah, obviously, it sounds like we're gonna have a little bit more work to do for the restoration of this than we would the other way, so I'd like us to do that. And thirdly, that in this next 30 days, as this is a kind of a limbo period to allow any other things to happen, but before we go out to bid, I would encourage the 10 people who spoke tonight to make time to work with our team, and that our team should take time that any accommodation that we can define prior to going out to bid not only serves, it gives the individual guarantee that their voice has been heard, but secondly, that the contractor, knows what the best scope of the job is, and we reduce the opportunity for change orders, although sometimes, as I said, they're always needed. So that would allow us to do that. I think we heard enough testimony that if we don't do something sooner rather than later, we will lose the money, and the county does not have the money in the general fund to fund this project. And that would be a travesty, because it's obviously something that needs to be addressed, and we've got an opportunity to do it. We need to get it done, and we need to honor the timetable, or we'll miss getting it completed by the end of '26. And so, as it is, going out to bid early in November means mid-December, and as we all know, not much work gets done from the middle of December to the first of the year. So that gives us about 6 weeks to get them out and get the bids in.
That's the longest motion I think I've ever heard. Should we second that? It's like a motion and discussion all at once.
Well, I was explaining the motion.
And then I just second it, and now let's talk.
Well, Mr. President,
Yes.
if I could, gosh, I was hoping, I don't know how procedurally, Greg, we get to discussion without actually making the motion, but I was going to ask, which is why I called Mayor McKinnon back up here. In the scope of a $2.5 million project, this is a hardship for the village, for LaGrange. And I was just going to see if my colleagues would entertain the cap for LaGrange at $200,000, and the county could make up that difference, be a little more generous, maybe a 60-40.
I think you used the word benevolent, I think you said.
I worry,
banker. Oh, okay.
I worry about leaving you guys.
Bankers don't give you money, they lend you
Yeah.
money at favorable rates and terms.
But that's why I asked you, because I worry about leaving you guys short in your stormwater water fund.
Oh, no, I agree. I agree.
And you guys have been just wonderful working together. Mr. President, your thoughts?
Well, I was going with the plan from our administrative team, and I would say that we need to do that and let the bids come in and see where they fall, and maybe revisit that. It's never difficulty to give money away. So I would leave the motion again to proceed.
Right, to grant the improvement, affirm the board's former order.
Yes.
The final and affirm the final engineering report with the change in access.
Change in access.
Any financing issues, can be addressed later on. The board is charged right now with, dismissing the ditch petition or affirming the ditch petition. So as long as we shore that up.
We affirm that, and
Yep, we have a motion.
if you're saying that we can discuss the arrangement with LaGrange at a later date, at least.
Right.
Okay.
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 Motion's all good then.
And how do I deal with the folks that came here to raise their issues tonight? Is there a way to include that in the motion so that they get the confidence of knowing we will deal with them?
Is that included in the final The only authority the board would have right now is grant or deny the petition and confirming the engineering final plan.
Okay.
Discussion of trees or anything of that nature is nowhere included in the engineer's final plan, correct? I mean, traditionally, we've done that, quite honestly, with a handshake agreement once the construction rolled around, right? I think Commissioner Riddell referred to that as field engineering, right?
Yeah, didn't Don say the bidders then would mark the trees after speaking to the homeowners? They would get marked.
Right.
Okay.
So, one of the things that we can do is go out, meet with the property owners and determine what trees can be saved and mark those and show them on the plan for final, before it goes to bid. So that would be documented then, for any property owners that wanted specific trees to be saved.
That's the accommodation I'm looking for.
Okay. So that's incorporated in the motion as well. Okay.
Thank you.
Okay. I make that motion.
Oh, we already did.
Yeah, we already,
Yep.
you got a second, yeah. Is there anything further? Further discussion? Commissioner Riddell?
Aye.
Commissioner Moore?
Aye.
Commissioner Hung?
Yes.
And that concludes our business this evening. The meeting is adjourned.
Thank you all for coming in.
Yeah.
These meetings used to be at 9:30 in the morning, but we didn't have this much activity, so thank you for coming in the evening. Thank you.
Do you need signatures on anything, Teresa?
Nope.
Okay.